It is 2/22/22, I just wanted to say that, really. We are missing one of our three, so I think we'll probably punt on the approval of the minutes until the next time when we have three of us here. Real quick, we can, I don't know, maybe we don't even need to chat about the 400s, but, you know, it came before P&G and then at the board table, back to P&G, it'll be at the board table again tonight for second review and adoption. I think all of the changes were already on there as of the last board review, so there isn't anything new tonight to review. So
Just
real
second
quick,
reading. Yep.
throw it around the table and see if anybody has anything else they feel needs to be added. I saw the changes got made that we talked about at our last meeting, so we're pretty good about that. All right, so let's not belabor the 400s, and we'll get into the 500s. They're long enough. I had a handful of things. A lot of them are very, very similar, and I think it's more maybe how it's organized more than anything else. But one thing I wanted to ask, I saw there was a kind of a list of policies that probably have updates in them in the text there. There was one, the 501.15 is listed there, but nothing's highlighted in that policy.
Let me see which one that is.
And so I didn't know if that was all new or something was changed and it's not highlighted.
I made a note that we just wanted to add the word superintendent or designate to it.
On the 15. I know that was changed in a handful of places. So
501.15, is that the one it was? Did you say, Sean?
Yes.
Okay. I might have just missed that.
So it's hard for me to know what was going on there because it wasn't highlighted.
I think page 27, Gene. Or were you trying to tell me?
Page 27, so the second paragraph, the superintendent, did you want to add it?
Or designate. I must have missed that one. Or changed it in one spot, but didn't highlight it over here.
So I was just curious. So a couple of other things to back up a little bit. 5013, I'm struggling to scroll through these things. There was an update, I think it's on, what page is that? It's either 7 or 8.
8?
It's on 8. There's an update at the bottom where it's crossed out school board and replaced with superintendent or designee. The very next sentences after school board action,
I caught
should
that
that just
too.
say district action?
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or you're missing a step or something, yeah.
Jane, are you okay if I just kind of go through mine? And
Yeah,
then
you
if
bet.
have stuff, you can jump back in. My next one is 502.1. Which I don't know what page it is.
Page 62. Is that the vehicle one?
No, it
Is it
is.
student appearance?
Yes.
Oh.
So on page 33, it looks like, it has basically the header, and then it has the code as a PDF link, and then it goes right into then having the code. So the link and what's down below are exactly the same.
It is, and I guess I should explain that. The reason for that is in board docs now, or not board docs, on the website, the way we redid the policies, you can just add the link if it's something that's formatted funny or a fill in the blank type thing, and then you just click on the link and it opens it up. So I put the cover page that shows where you hit that
Okay,
link,
so you
and then the
would-
policy itself
okay.
is underneath it.
I
Yep.
thought it might be something
Yep.
like that. So there's a whole bunch of things like that.
Yep.
So, later on, it's like 506.1, E1 through E7, and 506.2, R1, and 507.2, E1 through E5 are links.
Mhm.
The text of the link doesn't match the policy number. So it'll say like 52, 506.1 is this, and then down below it, the link, it'll say like 49 instead of 52. So the numbers, so.
I know what you're saying,
Right, so
yeah.
the link
And
didn't get updated with the new number
I,
or something like that.
this is so wonky, and this is something that they're trying to figure out for us on the website. Usually when you go in and you put your policies in, you can just choose to sort them by numerical order. But we're finding like if it's 501 and then 510, when you get to 10 and above, that keeps shooting them up. So we had to go in and just put a number in front of them to keep them in the correct order. It probably looks funny on this, not so much on the website. So
Numbers.
for your review, yeah, I'm sorry, that probably is confusing. But I will double check those. There was 506.
Yeah, so the ones where I had, it's 506.1, and then there's E1 through E7, and all
Okay.
of them have a header number and then the link number, and the two numbers don't match. And
I
then
will make sure they do.
506.2 R1 is like that. And then 507.2 E1 through E5.
See what it's doing,
Exactly,
the
yep.
70 and the 68?
Yep,
Yeah.
67.
yep.
And so I guess I don't know what it looks like.
I don't, you know what, one thing that we probably should sometimes sit down and do is walk you through the new policies on the website. It'll probably make a lot, I had really kind of had a hard time, because you can go and you can print them out individually. You can't print them out, like, if I go in and say I want to print the whole 500 series, you can't do it. You have to print them out individual. So I had to make a new sheet that had all the policy numbers written down and then do links to them, which it makes sense when you look at it in board docs. In this, it won't. I'll try to clean up the 600s and further on so they're a little bit easier for you to follow. But I will make sure that things
I
are
think the
how they're supposed to be.
truth of the matter is if they make sense.
Yep.
Where other people are gonna look
Just so
at
they're-
it, that's fine.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, do you like even need that number on that second?
Probably not. I could probably get rid of that. I think I added that number when I did my linking for this for you guys.
Yeah.
So when I went and they would fall in the right order.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not so sure it shows on the website with that.
All right. And I got
I'll
four
look
things
at
that
it.
are actually real.
Gotcha.
things, I think. Well, at least three real ones and one constitutional. So 5027 is on page 52. It's smoking, drinking, and drugs. I was looking through there, and I want to say this came up the last time, but I don't remember. It doesn't specifically address vaping. There is one place where it says tobacco products. Everywhere else says smoking, I think. So I don't know if we need to be more explicit on vaping in there somewhere.
I'm just reading it, Sean.
I think it's like the third paragraph down. It does say use of tobacco products,
Right.
and I guess that calls. Or even look-alike substances. Like, I don't know.
I remember us
It
talking
doesn't-
about it last time. I thought we kind of agreed to leave it because it did talk about tobacco and then also drugs, which are what you could vape, but there's probably no reason we can't be more specific than that. I don't think it matters.
And I was trying to remember exactly what it said on here. If there's a, I don't know, one of these little bullet points to talk about, this is a, I don't know, a dirty word, I guess, but paraphernalia, right? Like, you can't have a vape pen, because you could just say, no, it's just water vapor and it helps my habit, right? But how are we gonna prove that right or wrong? I think if we just put in there that you couldn't even have
Right.
the material, like the vape pen, or however we wanted to say it. Doesn't matter what it's filled with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so something about, yeah, because it'd be kind of like
Maybe it's at the end of the third paragraph.
also a pipe or something like that we wouldn't want them to have, right? So you're saying end of the third?
Yeah. probably gonna, I mean, the next conversation we need to have is, do you treat paraphernalia that doesn't have any substance the same way as you treat the actual substance? You know, that's the
Right.
conversation we're gonna have for disciplinary purposes, but we can certainly add it there, and we could add the into and just remember this to add those things for sure.
And I,
Yeah, I think we can include those.
I mean,
Yep.
it can certainly be argued that it's technically covered, right, with the way it is. Like we talked out at having it in there, but I don't know if
Can be more explicit though. Yep.
the, look at that.
I guess in the next policy it does possession or use of illegal controlled substance. If you just scroll down to the next page, number 3 talks about paraphernalia.
There you go.
So maybe we just get more clear on the vape portion of it.
Yeah, maybe it's even in that line, right? Or paraphernalia such as dot, dot, dot. I don't know. Okay.
Okay. We'll work on that.
Let's see. Another one, and this is, I don't know, timely, I guess. I think I wrote this down before we started getting all these emails. It's 503-1. So it's on page 66. I'm trying to find the exact sentence. I think it,
Is it the assault of the staff member?
yeah, and the question I had was, it says they're suspended, right?
Yeah.
It just says that, right? And there's no wiggle room there. And I do remember this being kind of from the state level as to what it said, so I wanted to
Yeah, that's code.
remember that we're kind of locked in there.
There's no age range, that was my question as well.
No, I mean, we can certainly go back and check with the attorneys on that, but when we got the IASB sample policy last summer, it's explicitly even like highlighted, said, you cannot take this out, like this is Iowa law, Iowa code. So I don't know if that came specifically out of that seclusion and restraint work. Remember that would have been approved like that prior November.
Yeah.
But that all came as those bundles of new policies we had you guys approve last January, then you reapproved them in June or July. And now we're back to seeing it again.
Yeah, I had remembered that was a thing, and I just want to make sure I was remembering it correctly.
Yeah.
I think Jane's question's a valid point if there was any age range that goes with it. Because I think the big concern that we're hearing is, you know, at the elementary level, for sure. And it's not solely there, but that's
In our drugs and weapons policies, you'll see, you know, that it says something about, you know, disciplinary action may include or something like that, suspension and expulsion. Where this one, it says the building principal must, you know, it's assaulted staff member. I also think this was derivative out of what you were, if you remember a couple years ago, what we were seeing happen in other schools and the staff, you know, going to media outlets and things like that about the assaults that they were receiving. I feel like this was all happening at the same time, and that's why we see this policy now. But, I mean, we can go back to the attorneys. I'm sure everybody.
Yeah, we can double check it back. My memory is the same as yours, Amy. That came along with the updated seclusion and restraint stuff that was out of the legislature at that same time, saying that districts had to suspend for those offenses. But the age range question's a good one to know if there's anything on that. And then also just to make sure we're consistent there where we need to be.
I think that would be good to know, right? Because the multitude of emails, right? Some of them are go into much more detail than others, but the several of them have the general line that just says, end exclusionary discipline, period,
Mhm.
right? And if there are cases when we can't do that by state law,
Yeah.
like we can't just jump into it and say, yep, cancel it all. So I want to make
Right.
sure that
Well, there are
we're
going to
right,
be, yeah,
right? And we know
yeah.
what the law is and what we can and can't do.
Right.
Because I think there's probably opportunity for improvement. It sounds like we're going to talk about some of that already, which is great. But yeah, we can't just go and make blanket statements without knowing what's legal and what's not.
Yeah.
So I appreciate going back and look at that one. I have 503.1 R1, and it's on page 71. This is kind of driving me nuts because there's like a 1, 2, 3, and then there's a 3 right after that.
So we need to change the numbers.
But towards the bottom, it's highlighted in yellow, which is why it stood out to me that the out-of-school suspension will be mailed to the students' parents. Can we have that say guardians?
Mhm.
Yep.
Or parents or guardians, or whatever we're saying it in other places?
Mhm.
I guess right below that it says student parents on like the third line of that sentence also, so there might be a handful of those that I didn't find. I think the one that was highlighted yellow stood out, so I noticed it. Alright. Then I only have one other thing, and I think this was a typo thing, and it's 506.1. I don't know what page it is, but I think it's the word definitions
Yep.
is missing the FI.
FI.
And I will
Page
tell you
135.
that that is a common bug
Huh.
That's
in
weird.
transferring into PDFs, because I have seen documents everywhere that had an F and an I, it disappears.
Interesting.
Tell me again which one that was?
It's 506.1, it's a heading that just says definitions, but actually says definitions.
Page
Space.
135.
Thank you.
I have seen that multiple times, so I don't know
Weird.
that it's a. Just
We'll
a
fix
problem
it.
on our end.
Yeah, it just like disappeared out of there, didn't it?
Okay. Yeah, and then it's all of the other ones I mentioned already with the numbers not matching, so that's
Gotcha.
all that I
Yep.
got. So, Jay, do you have
Okay,
a?
all right, I
few
got
more?
some. Yeah. Do you want the typos first, or?
Sure,
Last.
either or.
There's another one, I think you're missing an FI, or maybe just the F, on qualifications on page 8, missing an F. I think the same page, there's a the that has 2 T's.
Very bottom there, last
Okay.
paragraph.
Thanks.
Okay, yeah, the last paragraph. the principal.
That looks like a funny bug too, the way it's offset there.
And one other typo on page 195 where it continues, but it should say continued.
Gotcha.
Do you want a number on
It's right on
that?
the
Well, I
page.
mean, it's like
Yeah.
numbered 1 through 10 on that page, just
Oh,
trying to
shoot,
find.
okay, all right. It was in the middle.
Discontinued?
Is it discontinued?
Yeah. That looks like it's fine.
Okay.
Well, that actually says discontinued.
Oops.
Sorry, I should have written it. I can find it and. Oh, number 9. No medication will be continued.
Jeez, I read right over that too. Good eye.
Alrighty. Okay, so page 25, 501.14. This is just a minor detail. It says the open enrollment forms can be found at the central office. I wonder if we just need to add that they're online as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Page 9, the just had a question about the automobile searches. I just wonder if that could be tightened up a bit. It seems just very broad and kind of putting our students at risk of being unnecessarily criminalized for things that might just happen to be in their car. I mean, I understand if there's a concern for a firearm or something like that, but I just wonder if that policy needs to be tightened up a bit.
Yeah, we can look at that one, Jane, to see if there's any more language we could put around that one. I think the key words there are reasonable, articulable suspicion to believe that something's there. I would just say anecdotally, those searches don't happen very often at all,
Yeah.
where we're going out to students' automobiles, but I have been part of one or done one where we have, right? And so, yeah, we can see what else we can add there. It's pretty short, little
I
blurb
figured
there.
that was the case,
Yeah.
but I just thought I would bring that up.
Yeah. Yeah, because it can't be random or anything like that, right?
Right.
It's just like a
It does
locker, it's got to be,
Right
yeah.
before, well, not right, the page before it defines and gives a little more detail to reasonable and articulable
Okay.
suspicion.
Yep, defines out those terms.
Okay, right.
I don't know if that's.
We'll highlight that one and give it a good look over, but yeah, thanks for
Okay.
pointing that out, Sean, because it does identify kind of what standard has to be met to do that with those reasonable and articulable suspicions, so, okay.
The other thing about automobiles, and Matt, we talked about this already, that I know that some students are going out to their cars to Zoom in the middle of the day for their counselor appointments. So, in this one about loitering on page 62, I just, and again, I know our principals are reasonable, our students aren't probably going to get in trouble for going out to their car to Zoom with their counselor, but I just thought I would bring that up, that's one reason why our students might be with their cars, and
Mhm.
I don't want them being disciplined for something like that.
Yeah, no.
Okay, page 64, 502.9. So, I'm a little bit concerned about the word generally. Generally, students may not be interviewed during the school day by persons other than parents and school district officials and employees. I worry that opens the door to some things that I certainly would want my children to be subjected to. So, I mean, I would hope that every effort would be made to involve parents. I wouldn't want students interviewed by police without their parents being present.
Yeah, it's the second paragraph where there's another generally, that one bothers me more. Because I think the first one, it's students are interviewed with the exceptions of what's gonna come after that, right? So that generally doesn't bother as much. It's the generally prior to granting a request to principal.
I think
to
actually,
contact the
I think
parents.
that's the general that I was worried
Yeah.
about. Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
I don't know if then that generally is then codified in that next paragraph
For DHS, yeah.
as to why they wouldn't be. So, like, I mean, I make
Right.
an assumption. The generally at the
There's-
top is unless it's
and there's
this,
the
and the generally
exception,
there is unless
yeah.
it's this. I think a better wording is the prior to granting requests, principals shall contact the parents with the exception of
Exactly, yeah.
blah, blah, blah. I think that reads better than saying generally, because that sounds like you would change your mind,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking through this from just different experiences, different times. I mean, I would say our standard is that before the police would ever interview a student, the parents would be contacted. But I do know some situations where we've come and it's also, I would say, been probably told to us that wasn't our place to do, that the police would interview that student, you know, if they wanted to, which we've had to work through those at different times, right? I mean, I can think of a really bad example, right, where we had a kid arrested on one of our campuses, right? And well, there was no calling the parents before that because they thought by calling the parents, they would lose the ability to apprehend the student. And so I don't know how to write the exceptions to that, I guess. I can say, like, from a practice standpoint, right? I mean, if they're doing an investigation, we never want to give law enforcement access to the kids without their parent being notified. But there's some other ones where I'm not, I guess this might be a good one for us to go back and talk to Joe about, because I'm not sure what our ability to say no is either, if we're pressed to it, right? If law enforcement shows up and said, we need this student, I don't know, can we say no? You know, and how black and white can that be if we refuse to give access? I mean, they're law enforcement to us too, right? So I think that's probably I don't know, Amy, you think I'm misreading that at all?
I think you're wise to go back to Joe. I mean, my experience with it was around DHS, and I think that's stated here with John Beach investigator, so
Yep.
I think, yeah, instead of us fumbling and making sure we're okay, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, because the examples are just different, right? Like if it's a 17-year-old and a gun concern out in the community, that probably feels different than a 10-year-old and maybe a theft they're trying to track down or something, right? Those are two very different circumstances, and appreciation on how to handle those. So yeah, we'll work with Joe on that just to beef that up, because either way, generally kind of seems like a problematic word for a policy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
great.
It
Yeah.
does kind of stand out as a very wishy-washy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not usually how you'd want to write it. All right.
What else you got?
Okay. So 507.9R1 on page 214. Is this something that is mandated by the state, the BMI, the annual BMI?
I don't think it's going to be that state.
Okay. I guess I'm a little bit concerned about that. I guess, you know, number one, BMI is not really a great surrogate marker for health. You know, you might have a student who is just naturally skinny, eats chips and soda all day and sedentary. You might have someone who's got lots of muscle mass and is active and healthy. And so number one, I don't think BMI is a very good indicator of health. And I guess, you know, my concern is with eating disorders, and how, you know, giving kids numbers that they can compare. And I don't know, like, how your practice is doing this, if this is something that you do in a class and all the kids know each other's BMIs, or if this is, you know, initial or how this is that. So I just had some questions surrounding that. It seemed like a red flag to me.
I think that's a good one for us to check on too, if nothing else from the nightmares I still have around the body caliper thing they used to do to you in PE class. So
Right.
that wasn't a great experience for me growing up, so I can definitely relate to that one.
I had Jess review this policy, she didn't flag it, but this certainly I think we can take it to Jan or Franco, because I think that's where it's occurring. I mean, I do think we're doing this.
Yeah, I think we do too, that we do get it. I think there's probably a different way we go about getting that measurement now, of course, but the one thing that makes me just cautious is that it's stated 3rd through 12th grade, that maybe it is linked to something else, Jane, so, because it just seems like an odd way to write that we would do it in 3rd through 12th, but
I did check the CDC and AAP websites, and
Neither of them use that.
They're like, well, they're neither for nor against it. I don't think there's a lot of data. This is
Oh.
something that's worthwhile.
The one thing I'm thinking about is the Healthy Kids Act and whether it's stated in there.
I see, okay.
I'm going to look at that right now, see if I can do something about it.
Yeah, I would say if it's not explicitly called out somewhere, then it would have to do with BMI. I don't I would remove it, period, from what we do. I don't think that's the thing we need to put on kids. I mean, you have the other stuff, I mean, you talk about, you know, language around learning a healthy lifestyle and doing this, that, and the other thing.
It's just much more
Those
important.
things will
Yeah.
make you healthy. Just telling you that you have a good or bad number is not helpful.
Yep, we'll flag that one too.
Okay.
Didn't find anything. Nothing
Not
yet.
so far. I'm seeing, all the physical activity minutes and CPR requirements, not necessarily seeing
Okay, let's see, page 176, 507.1. It's just, this is about the vaccinations, and we listed, there are a few that are listed, and then it's just, and then all that are required. It doesn't list out all the ones that are required, so I didn't know if you wanted to add in mumps, hepatitis B, and varicella to that list.
What are the other ones? Mumps?
Hepatitis B and varicella. That was 316.
It is.
Yeah,
Third paragraph.
we just will add them in.
I think you leave the other immunizations required by law, so if something else
Mhm.
comes up in the meantime, you're still covered. But
Right.
if you know them, you might as well have them.
And then, page 178, 507.2, again, just adding in advanced practice provider to the physician and nurse language.
Okay.
Last paragraph, authorized practitioners such as licensed registered nurses and physician. So we just add in advanced practice provider.
Can do that? Yep.
All right.
That's all you got?
Yep.
Hi, Athena.
Hi,
Hi, Rufina.
sorry for late work call.
I went through my list and Jane's gone through her list. I didn't know if you had a list. And if it's redundant to
no,
mine or
I'm
hers,
good.
that's fine. If you had anything you wanted to throw out there.
No, I'm good. The only thing, you guys were talking about the one thing I had a question on as I walked in. So I caught the tail end of that conversation. I could listen to the rest. I'm good.
I guess I'd look to Amy or Matt if there were other things that you guys saw. It looks like you already have made some changes already,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
I assume that's the ones you're looking for. So yeah. Feel
You guys
pretty
are
good
okay
with
with those changes that we suggested in there?
it? Yeah, I didn't see anything wrong with it. There was, I mean, I brought up a couple that I thought the language needed to be slightly tweaked, but didn't have any problem with the substance of it. Well, we don't need to keep harping on the 500s, but since Ruthina is here, I would back up to our minutes from our February meeting, just so we can cross our Ts and dot our Is. Let folks have a chance to look at it, but I take a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Bye.
All right. Love it. Next meeting is going to be March 20.
Second, same day as today.
Same days.
That's right. Lines up that way next month again. 8th and 22nd for our meetings.
Well, we got the 400s tonight to adopt at the board meeting.
Yep.
And we'll bring the 500s for the first reading on the 8th, And then, well, the second reading on the 22nd, so on the 22nd with the 500s and 600s. And I did see Amy had sent out an email back to
So
Lisa on some of the content. I would like to kind of walk through that conversation at the next meeting. What the understanding was there. But that can be next meeting. So I entertain a motion to adjourn.